across the pond in the United Kingdom to the west coast of Orange County, California. From the Pacific perspective to the Atlantic perspective. From liberal craziness to conservative idealism. From Christianity to atheism belief systems. Welcome to the TheGrayZone Roundtable with Rectify and Wingman at Revolution Radio. FreedomSlips.com.
Right on. What's up, all the good peeps of Revolution Radio? This is Rectify. Welcome to the TheGrayZone Roundtable. First off and foremost, I want to thank Noreen, who does the awesome roundtable before us. She precedes the Gray Zone. Thanks for the shout out, Noreen. That's Monday nights on the West Coast at 9 p.m. or 12 a.m. on Tuesday mornings on Tuesday for the East Coasters out there. Thanks, Noreen. Big shout out back at you. Welcome, everybody. Tonight is February 3rd now for the East Coasters. Good morning, 2014. Happy New Year, all that good stuff. I wanted to introduce my new co-host, Wingman. Wingman is going to be my wingman. So if that's any cornier than corny, I don't know what else I could throw in there, but it's going to be awesome. He's my wingman. So, Wingman, are you with me? I want to say what up.
What up, Rectify and listeners? I've got the matchsticks out ready to co-host the show.
Sweet. And it is an open roundtable. What we do is we all get together. Everybody's welcome. Call in and join us. 347-688-2902. It's 347-688-2902. And bring anything on your mind to the table. Tonight, I do have a topic I'm going to start with. Basically, I'm going to dissect the way a man in the UK lives. So we're gonna dissect Wingman tonight a little bit. How do you feel about that, Wingman?
Well, we'll see how it goes. Might be interesting.
Yeah.
Those want to know what goes on over here, I don't know.
Right. A lot of people, in the States, I mean, just like you guys get propaganda about us Yankees over here, we get propaganda about how you Brits over there roll. So I thought we'd just clear stuff up, because I did a saga back in my old show. It was Interview a Religion. And it was the same type of concept, just, to straighten out all the fibers, clear up all the mirrors and stuff, get rid of all the fog. So I thought that would be fun to start off with. But yeah, anybody out there wants to join us, you can get in here also on Freedom Screen through Skype. That's Freedom Screen. We've also been joined by a good friend of mine, Red Shifty. KC, what's going on, girl?
I'm here. Just
right
came
on.
to chill with you and Mr. Wingman.
Yeah, get your list going. We got UK questions to ask. We got to know how the Brits roll over there. So, Wingman, you want to introduce yourself? Give us a little background about who Wingman is?
Oh, wow. Who Wingman is. Okay. This is Wingman from the UK. The South is all I'm going to give away. Or Southeast. There we go. And I haven't got GPS on my phone, so you won't be able to triangulate my signal. Only kidding. So, wow. I've been been awake for some time. Quite a spiritual chap, you might say. And been frequenting chat rooms for some time. It's my alternative to TV, I guess. I find it educational from a psychological point of view. I find it very interesting to see what makes people tick. And to some extent, a lot of, not only chat here on Freedom Slips, but other chat rooms, they're often like a global stage. And I find that attracts quite, the cream of the crop to some extent of those that are interested in conspiracies, what's going on, educating themselves, and just sharing, interests and experiences. And, I've learned a lot over the years.
How does one in the UK wake up? I mean, in the States here, a lot of us woke up because of 9/11. Was that an impact also in the UK?
It's hard to, for myself, I've always, like, since childhood, I've always kind of been awake, more or less. I was, like, super psychic as a kid. Much of that psychic stuff I've tried to tune down or turn off to some extent. But for the general populace, I think it's been a very slow and gradual affair. I think people like David Icke have obviously helped. It wasn't that long ago when he was interviewed about, you know, some of his new found experiences and interests on a show called The Wogan Show. This was back in the 80s. And he was laughed off the show. He was ridiculed.
Yeah, he used to be a sports commentator, isn't that correct?
Yeah, he used to be a sports commentator, and then he got into politics for a while, and he realised how corrupt and how much of a game it was to these guys. And he got out of that, and suddenly found his new field of interest, which is what he's doing now. But yeah, I mean, just that gives you some idea. The fact that he was laughed, the whole audience was laughing at him like he was some kind of fool, and that just shows that people just weren't tuned into it back in the 80s.
Well, that's kind of like our commander-in-chief here, Obama. He'll get up in front of an entire audience and say, we're going to send drones on India, and you're not going to even see them coming. That's the solution. And he laughs, and then everybody applauds him. So it's kind of the same thing, kind of like derp.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I was quite astounded when Bush said, what was it, you're either with us
or you're with
them,
them.
the terrorists.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Right.
They can be clever at times. But,
how do you feel about being allies, about the UK being allies with the United States and fighting these unlawful wars?
Well, that's an interesting question, but I've always thought that, I've always looked at the UK as the kind of lapdog of America, really, the yes men to American policies and war policies and things like that.
I could swear it's the other way around. I thought the Queen ruled it all.
Well, maybe if you go deeper it is, but for the surface stuff, it's pretty obvious that, we comply with a lot of American policy. And as a result of, what happens over there happens over here, and not just through politics and policy, but also through media and film and TV. So for that reason, I figured, well, if what happens over there happens over here eventually, then I may as well take an interest in American politics and culture. And so that's what I've been doing. And certainly the politics is much interested in the UK politics, which I really don't follow that much, to be honest, because it's so boring and mundane.
Well, speaking of politics in the UK, I'm wondering how voting under a queen works. I mean, is there really any sort of democracy? How does that work? Who do you vote for? What do you vote for over there?
The voting system is pretty much the same. We have three main parties, a fourth one that's emerged, that's managed to shoulder in recently, called UKIP. But the main parties are Conservative, whom are have what they call a coalition. We've got a coalition government at the moment, which is when basically when you have an election and when one party doesn't have enough votes to win by a kind of a certain majority, then what you get is a coalition government. So there's a coalition government with Conservative and the Liberal Democrats over here. So those are the two main parties. Sorry, and then we've got Labour. Sorry, that's the second main party. The Liberal Democrats, third main party, and then we've got UKIP, which is kind of like a fringe party, but they've got some good things about them. There's a few truthers in there even. But yeah,
is that UKIP? UKIP?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
But for the most part, it's pretty. I don't know. It's very It's very kind of predictable politics over here, and basically, it's just mostly it stems around not answering questions. And so if any politicians are ever interviewed here in the UK by someone like Jeremy Paxman, for example, then it's the same old thing. It's just like they get asked a direct question about, aspect of their policy or what's going on, and they just don't answer it. And that's been going on for a while.
They have the conservative and liberal parties mixed together there, huh? So right out loud. I mean, here they try to fool everybody and make it seem like Democrats are the liberals and Republicans are the conservatives. But over there, you guys have it there together. You said it was conservative and liberal together.
Yeah, with Conservative having the majority of seats in the Houses of Parliament.
Interesting.
Yeah. But so I mean that's where coalition government is kind of rad. I don't think you have you have a coalition government over there in the States. I don't.
We're a two-party system. We have conservative and the liberal, which we have the Republican and the Democrat, basically. The elephant and the donkey. That's the symbolism for them, and it's a joke. It's the best way to say it is, which is a cliche now, is it's the two sides of the same coin working together, and people think that there's actually a rally going on when behind the scenes they're not. They're colluding together, so it's a big show.
Yeah, it's Conservatives over here are called, they're more right wing, and the Labour's meant to be more, and Liberals meant to be more left wing. It took me ages to figure out what left wing and right wing. I could never get my head around what that meant. And then if you go to the extreme right wing, then you have extreme nationals. But the funny thing is, the more extreme right wing you go over here, the thicker the individuals become with regards to the representative of that kind of ilk, if you like. It's quite strange. But yeah, extreme right wingers are pretty dumb idiots over here.
What would you say to the wealth class over in the UK is? What percentage? Like over here, we say like the upper 1%. We're the bottom 99%, the majority. As far as wealth goes over there, with middle class and upper class, before the monarch, before you're in the monarchy class, what percentage would you say of the population has money?
Do you know what? After having travelled America, it's not that different to what's happening in America in the middle class. There are obviously very wealthy areas in the UK, and you'll tend not to see any minorities in those areas. Basically, the tactics that they use is normally the property and the shops in the wealthy areas over here in the UK are normally so highly priced that they push any kind of ethnic minority or poorer middle class or lower class folk out of the...
You guys have like Walmarts and like superstores and stuff.
We do have superstores. Normally probably not as big as Walmart, but we have, big supermarket chains. We've got Asda, Tesco. I think Asda are part of Walmart. I think they were bought by Walmart. So we've got a few supermarket chains, but you won't find those kind of shops in the wealthy areas, generally speaking. So, there is a kind of a kind of direct intent to filter out certain minorities from the wealthier areas, so that the wealthy folk don't get, don't have to mix with the lower class ones, I guess. And so they do that through, like I say, price. In other words, they don't give any reason for someone poor to go into a wealthy area because they.
So you have like ghettos, what we'd call ghettos here. You have certain areas that we know that there's going to be poor people residing in, and then you have certain areas that are really green and maintained and landscaped, and the stores are clean, and there's a separation with boundaries type of deal. Right.
And we have a lot of areas in especially like the London cities, and like a lot of and with London as well. The funny thing about London is it's very fragmented in a way. It's like you get a replication of town after town, and you see the same shops in each and every town. But a lot of the towns are very ghetto-like in London until you get to the very centre where it tidies up a little bit. But generally speaking, your average town outside of the centre within London outside of the a few miles of central London. They're pretty ghettoish. They're pretty ugly places. There's not much green space, and you get the same shops, over and over again. And the green spaces is a problem. Every now and again, you get a small park dotted around everywhere that everyone walks their dogs on. But for the kids in London, especially, and a lot of the other cities as well around England, it seems as though, there isn't much play area for them. The kids don't really, or are starting to lose, and this is a kind of another topic altogether, but the kids are starting to lose that connection to nature and the outdoors and the nature that's involved with that. And I think that's a real shame in itself as well,
Well, I mean, all the parents are buying them, Call of Duty 4 or what have you, or Grand Theft Auto 5. Come on. They're having video games and the television raise their children these days. That's going on here big time also. Everybody's becoming more oppressed, pushed back into their own homes. The forming of ghettos is growing like a cancer. Just because of the family structure being torn, like just with that example.
Yeah, and I watched quite an interesting docu kind of. Yeah, it was like a docu film the other day called Project Wild Thing, and it was about this guy who'd taken on the position of director of nature, CEO of nature kind of thing, of Nature Inc. And his agenda or goal was to get people back into nature. And so he was going around some schools and, interviewing a few kids and asking them about, the lifestyle and what they wanted and what they did. And the majority of them are kind of actually don't really go out into the outdoors. They spend the time either in front of the telly or the computer. Often the parents are fearful of them going outdoors and playing, without supervision. And things like child abuse and the threat of that, which is very minimal, but it still concerns parents, obviously. And so they end up not really doing the things that many of our generation did, like climb trees and pick up worms.
Play dodgeball.
Yeah, roll around on in the grass and the all that kind of adventurous side of things. So they're starting to.
There's an app for that, though, Wingman.
There's an app for that, right? Exactly, and they in this documentary they were kind of discussing the implications of that, but even within the city where they do have certain play areas, and like I say, they're very, very few and far between. But you'll have like a certain play area surrounding a project. I think you call them projects over there, kind of projects estate area. And you'll have a sign there saying no ball games. So, it's like, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. And actually one of the kids did comment on it. And he said, yeah, well, they say no ball games there, but we ignore that. And when he said that, I thought I was so proud of him. I was like, yeah, you tell him, He says, sometimes the older people moan at us for playing ball games and we don't care because there's nowhere else to go. And I thought that was kind of sad but true, and it was kind of emulative of, or indicative of what happens in the cities. And it's really tough in the cities for kids.
It is. And once you're born into it, it's really tough to get out because it becomes generational and you don't know any better. So unless you have outside influence that's positive, you're not going to have the opportunity to see a light, let alone find it. Right. And I was lucky enough to actually, very lucky enough to I went to boarding school when I was younger, and that was out in the countryside, and we'd have, cattle and horses and whatnot just walking through our village, and the high street, which is kind of quaint, really. So I was one of the lucky ones to get out of London, which is the where I was born and brought up, and into the country. But it was weird even then. As a young'un, it was weird being out in the country, and I didn't really realise what I was missing.
to some extent. And I think, you know, if you are missing out on that side of things as a child, you know, there's something missing, and there's something inherently, you know, because even things like, you know, enabling the child to, you know, evaluate risk, for example, you know, so there's a certain risk with playing outdoors sometimes.
They don't even
you know,
teach kids how to plant a seed these days anymore, I don't think. I mean, when I was in, like, grade school, we did things when I was really young, like we'd go out and get a stone, and we'd make stone soup. Everybody would bring a vegetable from home, and, you know, we'd put a big old pot together of stone soup. And we'd make it, they'd teach us how to make it, and we'd enjoy it, and, you know, it was a real lesson. Nowadays, it's, you know, how to memorize for the test, how to memorize, how to not judge, everybody's equal, how to memorize. That's education these days. But I wanted to bring up, before we get off the ghetto point, because we have the ghetto problem here, and a lot has to do with immigration issues. It seems like the inflood of, you know, Mexican illegal immigrants is a big problem here in the States. And it seems it's blatantly obvious, actually, that it's being done on purpose to actually to bring down our stability as a country, economically and family values, educational values, and all that. What we're told here, you know, in the non-mainstream media is the same thing is going on over there in the UK with the Muslim community as far as immigration. Can you expand on that a little?
Well, there's been an influx of immigrants into the UK for a long time, and well, since probably started about way back in the 60s or thereabouts. And you know, it first started with Jamaicans and Greeks, and then I think that was in the 70s. And a few Africans, and then in the 80s it moved towards more African and Indian, and that's when the Asian community started to emerge in the UK, which is very prominent in the UK. We have a very big Asian community here in the UK. And then later on, towards the 80s, end of the 80s, you've got the Polish is a bit later. Between the 80s and 90s, you've got the Polish and the Romanians, and some Serbs. That was later in the 90s. So there's a whole mix, and you know, depending on what decade, you know, there was a big influx of immigrants. And so, you know, to give you some idea, I went into central London not long ago, and was at Paddington Station, quite a well-known station here, but it's here in the UK and overseas. And there was maybe out of 100 people, there were probably, if you were lucky, 5 proper Caucasian English folk. Everyone else was foreign. So that gives you an idea of the cultural mix, certainly in London, but, you know, not just in London. You know, Birmingham has a big Asian community, and it's up north, a few places up north as well. But yeah, our main dish in the UK is our most popular dish in the UK is curry. So, you know.
Do you eat a lot of curry food yourself?
No, not really, but I can cook a killer curry.
Right on. Would you say like a lot of the violent activity that goes on is, could you specify maybe a certain group, or is it just poor people?
To say it's, you know, crime is mainly down to a certain group, but there are organized gangs. There's different, you know, Romanian gangs, Asian gangs. I think you'll find for every kind of ilk of the cultures that are here, there'll be organized crime. You know, regardless of nationality, or for each nationality. So, you know, we did have a lot of Romanian begging in the streets, which is a bit unsightful.
Those are the gypsies, right?
Yeah, we did have a lot of that going on for a while. I'm not sure if that's still happening in London. I haven't seen it so much recently.
We have a show here in the States that my wife likes to watch. It's all about the gypsies over there and how they're really freakish, real sexual, and they get married really young and they dress really sexy and they got mouths like sailors. They're cussing left and right, and yeah, she really digs that TV show. I thought that was kind of odd. I've glanced over it a couple times, but they really get married young, and they're taught to be like sexual deviants at a young age. Is that true, or is that just Hollywood?
Are you talking about the Muslim culture?
Oh no, the gypsies.
Oh, the gypsies, right? I don't know really. I don't know enough about that to be able to comment. But I think there is. I mean, it makes you wonder. Especially. Sorry, I was going to say. Obviously, we're kind of part of the European Union in terms of borders, just not currency. We don't have the euro, for example, where other euro members do. What that allows is for anyone, I mean, basically the way it works, anyone within Europe can go to any of the other countries without a visa. Anyone that's part of the euro. So, as a result of that, there was a kind of, shuffling around of nationalities when all when the borders opened up, so to speak, from that respect and from an immigration point of view. So there was a big influx from that. But I think, one of the main reasons, the ETRA, if you like, for allowing a huge number of immigrants to come to the UK, I think is probably to do with its control again. It's to do with wages.
Yeah, they're trying to bring everybody down to their knees, right? So you just influx an outside populace in, and the inside populace has more competition and wages drop, while at the same time hyperinflation and all the injection of fiat money raises all the prices of goods and services. So I see it as a planned a warfare technique. I think they're doing it in both nations, just with different classes of people. I don't blame the people coming in, because most of them are just, people looking for better opportunities, coming from a shut down nation that's already, more third world than first world. And so when they see first world opportunity, it's like, yeah, I'm on it. So they're there, and, it's not their fault, but the ones that are allowing it to happen at the top, I think they have more nefarious reasons, like you say, to break us down on purpose, to make it tougher just to get along and get by check by check every week.
Right. Well, the fact wages work much like goods and supply and demand, and the more demand you have for a certain labour or skilled labour, the more the wage would go up. The more wages you'd have to offer to get that skilled worker, especially in. So not just skilled worker, but it works for both and labour. So by allowing an influx of immigrants into the country, you effectively cap the demand, so to speak. So there's always a supply. Sorry, you cap so there's always a supply of labour, and that way the wages pretty much don't rise, and they haven't risen here pretty much for the last 10 years. They've remained stagnant, while those in the at the director level, their salaries probably increased tenfold over the last 10 years. So there's been a disproportionate increase in the top earnings bracket compared to the middle and lower, and meanwhile, of course, gas prices go up and fuel prices go up, and cost of living goes up, and property prices go up, and rent goes up. So inadvertently, you've seen there's actually been a decrease, if anything, in disposable income in the last 10 years for sure. But again, this is because there's always an influx of people to fill the first few tiers of djobs that are available, and thereby demand. there is no need to up the
You think
wages.
it's because lazy people just don't want to do the work? That's often the reason that we're given is, oh, it's not the immigrants' fault. It's the lazy people didn't want the job.
No, I think that's an excuse. I mean, it's as though the elite need an excuse to say, why someone isn't in work or doing that. Get a job is always the responding. Get a job, or there's always a job out there. You can always work at McDonald's is normally the rhetoric,
Right.
that you hear. But there are. I mean, there's employment centres in most towns, and you'll find there's a few job postings every day. But they're things like catalogue distribution or mundane things like that, or occasionally you'll get some skilled jobs that might arise. But for the unemployed, I mean, for the most part, most of the unemployed are unskilled. They had a poor education, or they were poor, or they were just had ADT or ADD, or something like that, or they just didn't get the grades, and they've been stuck on welfare for, a lot of them for, year after year for many years, and then having kids in the meantime as well. So there's a lot of unskilled labour in the UK that. Because we don't have much of a manufacturing industry, which is similar to in the States over there, then they can't do anything because
we have a lot of similarities with the welfare state here. Women typically, once they learn the ins and outs of the welfare check, and it becomes generational, years after years. What they realize is if they marry and they live with the father of their children, their benefits get cut. So what they end up doing is never marrying. Baby daddy became a new term, right? And baby daddy doesn't live with baby mama, and therefore baby mama is single, and she gets a check, and she gets more money for the more kids that she puts into the world. And it's become a social disease here in the ghettos.
Yeah.
But it's not frowned upon. I mean, it is by certain people, but it's frowned upon by people that frown upon it. Like, you're a racist if you frown upon it. That's become a public stigma. That if you claim the logic of the wrongdoing of it, then you're a racist and you're a hater. So that's what's going on here on like mainstream media. They make it seem like you're a hater if you call out the logic of it all.
Right, yeah, no, I get you. And another of the problems is there's no real program to give those who haven't been in work for many years or since school. There's no real program to give them the work skills to be able to enter employment with a big gap on their CV. So some of them might have like 10 years gap, maybe more, on their CV, and no employee, an employee's going to turn their nose up at
What's
someone
the CV? I'm not sure what a CV
curriculum
is.
vitae.
Is that, that's like your tax, what you paid in your life?
No, it's your, I don't know what you call it in the States. It has your work history and details and all that stuff.
Huh, we don't have that here that we're told, but I'm sure the NSA has some equivalent.
Well, no, when you apply for a job, it's your job application. You present
a resume.
Resume, sorry, resume, that's it, yeah. So if you've got a blank resume with no work experience, the chances are if someone's going for a fairly decent, let's say maybe a retail job or something like that might be available, then the employer's going to turn their nose up at someone with nothing on their no work skills, right, and no experience, and so a lot of them pretty much give up, on applying for jobs. They'll pretend, that it's like, but the funny thing is they're forced to make certain applications, like a couple of applications a week for jobs, but there aren't any jobs out there really. There's not. Well, there are, but there's just like this tiny, hundreds of people going for a few decent jobs.
Automation, yay! Not only did it help make us lazy, it took all of our employment opportunities. Yay, automation! There's an app for that. It's called the Job app.
Right. So, it is a real problem here, and even worse is the the disincentive to actually start full-time employment, because the gap between benefits or welfare and an entry-level job is minimal. You're talking maybe $50 roughly. So, that's tough as well, because you have to incentivize someone for getting that extra $50 and getting off their ass kind of thing.
And you've got expenses too. I mean, you've got to have your uniforms cleaned. You got to have your fuel and your vehicle
transport,
to get to your work.
And lunch is an expense. Whereas you
right.
have lunch at home. Yeah, well, work lunch is a bit more expensive.
You got to eat out, because of a time crunch. That's right.
Right. So if you factor in transport and lunch and uniform and so on and so forth, then sometimes it could be as little as a $30 to $50 difference in what you take home versus what you take home in welfare.
What would you guys say your tax rate is over there as far as percent? I'd put it all together here with every tax that the average person pays here. It's about 60 to 70%. About 60%.
Well, normally tax, we have something called national insurance, which pays towards National Health Service and other things. So we have two taxes that come out of the wage here. And that normally equals about a third of your income.
Oh, I was adding like sales tax, fuel tax, everything together. Not sale, just wage tax alone. We're about 30%.
So it's pretty similar. But yeah, I feel, gosh, if there aren't many things that there aren't a tax or something you have to pay a permit on. If you apply, we have like if you got a TV, you got a fee to pay on that. If you want to go fishing, you got to buy a permit. You have to buy permits for so much over here. It's quite incredible. But yeah, of course there are hidden taxes everywhere, and it's like highway robbery, isn't it? But it's the same over there as well with regards to that, I think.
Well, I call it slavery, but whatever. Especially when they can do this quantitative easing and, just print and print and print all the money they want, and too big to fail bailouts, and we're too small to bail, all of that crap. So it's all a facade to me. It's all faith-based, and I'm sick of having faith in it so much. But what do you think about your guys' we have the CIA, FBI, all kinds of different NSA, alphabet agencies here in the States. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between MI5 and MI6?
I still don't know. I should look that one up.
All right. Thought I'd ask.
I think MI6 was not. I mean, both of those agencies no one was meant to know about for a long time. Like, there was always denial that they even existed. But I still don't know what the difference between the two, to be honest.
Okay.
But we have the CID, Criminal Investigation Department, which is like your
NSA.
FBI.
Probably like the NSA. National Security Agency.
Yeah, they're like the top tier of the police kind of thing, and you obviously you got your MI5, but that's pretty much it. MI5, CID, and those are the only two I know about.
And your police officers there, they don't carry I think they're armed now, but they don't carry a sidearm, do they? They just carry a stick, right? A baton.
A baton. Yeah, the regular police beat officers don't carry firearms. If there's an incident where they think they need assistance, they can call a firearms unit, which is a fairly recent thing.
How about tasers?
Actually, they do carry tasers now, yeah, which is unfortunate.
They use them a lot?
Well, it's not too bad. It's not too bad, actually. It's not too bad.
It's like an occasional. It's like they look for a reason to use them here, let alone look for a reason to use their weapon if they want, And what ends up happening is there's really no consequences. They have internal affairs that are part of the internal department, so they investigate themselves whenever there's a complaint or an issue, and basically the officer just gets paid time off. He gets a paid vacation while the investigation goes on, and he ends up, at the worst, losing his job, but never any real justice. And it's becoming more and more prevalent. Cops will come in and blast right on your dog. It's like, yeah, no problem. They know they can get away with it because it's happened so many times. There's been no consequences. So they'll come in and just shoot your dog right off the bat if they want. They're doing no-knock warrants, so they don't even have to go to a judge anymore. So they're abolishing our Fourth Amendment, basically. To where they need to have probable cause and have a warrant for searches and seizures of property and persons. They're just going right around that now, busting down doors. If they have any suspicion, if a neighbor calls that they heard screaming and there's possibly, spousal abuse going on, that's called domestic violence. And if a cop shows up for that, they're going to bust your door down, and someone's got to go to jail. That's the law now. There's no choice. It doesn't matter if one of the parties wants to prosecute or not. The district attorney or the prosecutor will pick it up of the court. And it doesn't matter. Someone's got to go to jail. So, yeah, your neighbor can pick up the phone, call 911, say, my neighbor's screaming next door. I hear screaming. So they'll send out like a SWAT team, basically bust down your door, and you're going to go to jail. And they'll probably tase you in the meantime during the whole fiasco. So I was just wondering the difference between your guys' cops and ours. I mean, do you guys as cops have more psychological empathy than ours? Or do they go straight for force and pull out the billy club?
I mean, I think the mentality of cops is pretty similar world over, and the kind of psychology, the cop psychology and that kind of thing. But it is better over here, I must admit. I mean, yes, cops are generally hated over here as well, but they are a little bit more conservative with their attitude. They obviously don't. Not having a weapon helps.
Say there's like a couple that's like having a dispute, just an argument, and a neighbor calls. Will the police just come and speak to the couple, or will they drag one of them out to jail?
They were trying to, they're trying to calm the situation down verbally and rationally. But they won't go in, like a bull in a china shop, which is what I've seen in America time and time again. And I think, actually, this is one of the topics I wanted to talk about is policing. I think that there is a so-called, because obviously you have guns in the US, and as a result of that, I think to some extent the police feel justified over there in using excessive force because they feel, or we've been perceived to feel, that the threat is elevated as a result of people being allowed to carry firearms. I think that threat is somewhat certainly not as high as one would think. I'll give you some. I did take some stats down actually in preparation for this topic, but to give you some idea, there's about 500,000 cops in the US, and in 2012, 47 officers died in the line of duty. Now, to put that into perspective, the risk to a cop of death whilst on duty is 0.001%. So the fact that cops are going in very heavy a lot of the time, and there was an incident actually just last week in Arizona, Pinal County, where a gentleman was killed, actually executed, I'd say, after a car chase. His car was immobilized by another police car, and he was fired upon. He came out of the car, and he's got his hands by his side, and nothing in his hands, and he was fired upon standing there, and even so, he was fired upon with beanbags 5 times. He panicked and turned his back towards the car, like he was kind of trying to get into the car to stop himself from getting hit. He managed to come round again, turns back round facing the police officers with his back to the car, puts his hands in the air, again, clearly nothing in his hands whatsoever. He's then fired upon twice with lethal real bullets and killed or executed whilst his hands are clearly in the air. And, that is a real traumatic example. And it's not the only one. of police executing civilians when there is no threat to them. There's no gun being pointed at them. You know, I mean, it's like, it's just crazy. It's kind of gotten to the state now where if you reach, say I'm in a car chase, I might be mentally ill or something, or panicking, and there's a lot of mental illness out there nowadays, and depression, and people just like climbing the walls and suddenly, you know, going a bit AWOL. But, you know, so, and if I even reach for something now, you know, or reach for a French stick now, you're going to risk getting shot by a cop. And that is obviously...
Well, that's here in the States. How about over there? They'll probably
no,
talk you out of it. Like,
no, that wouldn't
please
happen.
show your hands, all polite, right?
Yeah, no, that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen over here.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen over
It's
here.
all militarized here now. I mean, we got cops that are all sleeved out, tatted, you know, their whole arms covered in tats, you know, military-style haircuts, you know, fat neck, straight out of Afghanistan and Iraq, hardcore, raised on Call of Duty, you know, and all those shoot-'em-up games type, hardcore gangsta mentality types, and that's our cops. And on a daily, if I'm out and about doing my, you know, daily chores, driving around, I can count about 4 to 5 black and whites per day. Just being out maybe a couple hours on the road. What would you say? How many cops could you count being out on the road in the UK?
You don't really see them that often, to be honest. You might see 2 cop cars a day on average. But someone in chat asked about some UK stats regarding deaths. Well, I've got some stats here. There's we had about, give you some idea of extreme police brutality resulting in death. We had about 10 incidents last year. Just to give you some idea, in the States, you had 305 incidents of death in police custody. So, you know, it's not too bad over here with regards to that aspect. And as for cops in the line of duty deaths, I'm not sure about that. I'll have to find that one.
How do you feel about your guys' CCTV, your closed circuit television camera surveillance systems, and how long have you guys been dealing with those on your streets?
Well, see, actually, that was more prominent. I mean, that was like the other way around over here. You guys kind of took on a lot of that after we did. So we kind of started a lot of the CCTV culture, if you like, if you want to call it culture. It's not really culture, is it? But, you know.
Tyranny,
yeah. And, you know, it started with them popping up in the high streets. Mainly, I think, the reason it did start was the thug kind of after hours drinking. The problem over here in the UK is that, you know, pubs open to a certain time, and then they all shut at the same time, more or less, and everyone, you know, falls out of the pubs pretty much at the same time, and they're all, you know, fighting in the street. So it was a way of monitoring, you know, violence, especially after drinking hours in the streets, which is, you know, I think that's justified. But from there, it's just gone on and on and on and on now. So it's on your undergrounds, it's on public transport, on your trains, on your buses.
Don't they talk to you also? They can like actually yell at you from the cameras?
I haven't come across that. I wouldn't be surprised if that a few of those do exist. But it's gone to the stage now where, you know, it's, you don't really notice it, you know, because it's everywhere. So you don't pay attention to it, you know.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Have you ever heard of the Love Police guy, Charlie Veach? You ever
Yeah,
seen
I've
any
met
of
him a
his
few
work?
times.
What do you feel about him? Is he a shill, or do you think he's for real?
Well, everyone that tries to do something for the greater good is a shill, aren't they?
Let's get back to that on the other side of the break. This is the Gray Zone with Wingman and Rectify, and we still have Red Shifty, who's been really quiet, but we'll be back in about 3 minutes. Stick around.
Welcome to the TheGrayZone Roundtable, Revolution Radio at freedomsource.com. 100% listener-supported radio. No corporate ties, corporate duct tape dictating our freedom of speech. It shall remain that way as long as we are supported by you. Join us, 347-688-2902. Enter the Gray Zone.
Hello everybody and welcome back. You're listening to the Gray Zone on Revolution Radio with myself, Wingman and Rectify. As you have heard before, we are totally listener supported, and that means we need your support. If you haven't already donated, please do and alleviate your guilt. And you don't need to mortgage the house, and but you're welcome to sell some gold and keep 90% of it. Have a nice meal and give the rest to us. Feel free to do so. If you want to call in, we're having a round table at the moment. Call in on 347-688-2902, or you can Skype us. The name to use is Freedom Screen, SCREEN. At the moment, we're talking a little bit about some police statistics and what happens here in the UK and over there in the US with regards to deaths in custody, that kind of thing. And yes, someone asked about some more stats in the UK. I just found some new stats actually regarding fatal police shootings, and it's actually a lot lower than I thought. We had no incidents of fatalities as a result of police shootings in 2013, and we had one incident in 2012. So, I think that's pretty good. A good record, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind living there in Europe. I know Switzerland. Okay, see, here's my next question. Do you think that the banning of weapons, guns, firearms in the UK has anything to do with the violence level? Because statistically, if you look at Switzerland, where every resident is required not only to be trained in weaponry, but to also join the military, not voluntarily, but forcefully. And then after the military, they are given their weapon to keep in their homes, and they are required to keep weapons in their homes. And they have almost the lowest murder rates in the entire world. So how do you feel about the banning of arms and the relation of that with your guys' death rate there in the UK?
Well, obviously, looking at the statistics I've just given you, they're very low. The death rate is very low, which means the threat of death by lethal weapon is also very low, which means I can go out in the streets and never worry about being shot. I mean, it's literally never, because it just doesn't factor into there's no risk factor as a result of it. So,
got a caller, SJ. How you doing, brother?
Hey, yo, boys. Good show. Good chat. I've done research in all those areas, if I can assist with some information.
Welcome to the Gray Zone.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Hi, SJ.
Hey, it is so good to hear your voice. How you doing?
Good. I've got the matchsticks propping open my eyelids at the moment, but we're good.
Well, you guys have put out a sustained effort. I think you need to be applauded for it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You know, one of the things, starting out with one of the earlier things last hour was a discussion about Mexico. And one of the things I did was really poke my nose into immigrant issues. I made a study of it. We were discussing it on one of our programs on way back in the day around 2000 during the elections. And from that point on, it's been a constant thing. My opinion is most of it is motivated because it's to the advantage of the corporate interests that are using labor in the South, specifically Mexicans and people from South America. There's a lot of immigration going on. America is one thing to every different level of people that encounter it. And those people have heard that it's good stuff. And compared to some of the areas in South America from Mexico on down, it is. Well, you know, they play pretty rough down below, eh? Over.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've heard a lot from our late friend here at the station, Michael Hemmingson. He was basically
God, I missed him.
Infiltrator down there. Yeah, he was hilarious. I loved that guy. But he used to infiltrate a lot of the actions going on down in Tijuana, and you know.
Well, there is lots of. You can't walk a block and a half without, you know, the chance to get involved in more than you can handle.
Right.
We used to go down to Mexico a lot. We used to surf. We'd head on. We spent a lot of time in Tijuana. You know, we knew what was going on at the border.
Stay on Revolution Street if you want to stay safe as possible, basically, is my advice.
Well, you know what? I always knew I'm an honorary Mexican. I
Okay.
I
thought you were Canadian.
Well, I'm many things. That's one of the things about being old and you know, going out into the wild instead of watching TV. See, that's what I've done. I've explored all of those hours I could have blown off on TV. I spent doing stuff that got me out in the middle of it all.
And what was the biggest thing in your life? Would you say would be sailing, being on the water?
You want the honest truth? One of the it's 100 episodes like that. You know, really, good story in all of them. One of the things that really got me out there was I met an albino dolphin, and it's one of those things that it has always been a part of my thinking since then. And what happened is I got really close to this albino dolphin. Somewhere between 15 minutes and a half hour, right around there. And it saw me, and I saw that it saw me, and I looked into its eyes. It was only about 3 feet away. Its eyes and my eyes were only about 3 feet apart. And I looked into its eyes for a long time. It would move around so I could look at it. It would move forward. The boat's moving out all this time at about 3 knots. We were dragging at that time, so that's about average dragging speed. And I looked into its eyes and I realized it wasn't an animal, it was a person. It was aware of me, being aware of it, and was helping me to inspect it. It was showing itself to me. I was close enough that I could see that it had hair on its back. Did you know that dolphins have hair on their back?
I do now.
Well, they're mammals, see?
Right.
It was really
one
amazing.
of the only species out there that have sex for pleasure other than humans.
They're complex. They have bigger brains than we do. They have a method of communication that can easily, their vocal communication can easily go hundreds of miles, is what I've heard.
Unless you have a Navy vessel in the way with sonar.
I'll tell you, one of the things I've studied is, I've spent a lot of my life, I've always loved oceanography. I read everything I can on it, anything I could understand, and that's most of it. And one of the things that happens with oil exploration, like they were proposing for Queen Charlotte Island when I was up there, we stopped them for the meantime, or at least slowed them down. they want to do oil and natural gas in the Sound. And one of the things I did, we had a big ass meeting about it. All the boys that were in one town wanted to do it because it would mean quote unquote employment. They were saying hundreds. What they really meant was there'd be 17 local people hired, and the rest of them would be, roughnecks coming in to work the exploration, right? There's all kinds of different rednecks, or roughnecks, to use the proper term, slang term. I like roughnecks. Always have.
So you got any questions for my new co-host, Wingman, about the UK? Have you ever been to the UK?
No. You know what I'd like to do? Wingman. We haven't talked to airplanes in a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, you were into model airplanes when you were a kid, right?
I built one.
What was it like?
I couldn't get it right. I was too much of a perfectionist as a kid, so got a bit frustrated and probably threw the thing on the ground and smashed it to bits.
Oh, too bad I didn't know you, because I could have helped to get it in the air.
Most important thing is the CG, center of gravity, highest point on your fin of your ribs of your wing.
Well, one of the things I tell kids, I teach model airplane classes. I teach kids how to build balsa wood models. You know, the old balsa wood models?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I teach kids how to build them. And I'll tell you, one of the things they do is I start them out with a real simple thing. And I can I can build this, they can build this little model airplane with about 2 cents worth of balsa, glue, and plastic, modeling clay for its nose ballast. Last time I did it, I taught about almost 300 kids. I was there the whole day, and they'd have classes of 30 kids. I think I did I don't know, maybe not that many, maybe 200. I did, I think, 6 or 7 classes. And they all built, each one of them finished off this little teeny glider. And then school was out, and instead of going home, what they all did was go out in the field so they could fly them, right? So I had 200 and some kids having a field day, and I launch them, I bring rubber bands along, and even the kid who has a weak arm, like a, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-olds, just learning how to throw right, they can get those little gliders up in the air like 50 feet. So cool. I've got a picture of all of them and me. I'm sitting on the ground, and I'm mobbed by this huge, long line, 30-foot long line of kids. Oh, God,
so, do you notice, whilst you're observing the kids, do you know, whilst you're watching the kids, do you notice a change in them?
Yes, I've been noticing it all along. I've been researching the sociology of our period. I was focusing mainly on the internet, but what's happening is I see changes that a lot of people aren't noticing because I'm looking, and I'm also talking to people that are also looking. So there's a lot of research and observation going on right now of what exactly is happening. For one thing, kids' reality is, kids are suggestive. All adults are suggestive as well, You know how suggestive we are, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what's happening is their reality is going to be significantly different from the way you specifically would think of reality. The average kid that doesn't have any of the benefits that you've gotten out of being alive at the time that you've been alive with the people that have been around you is different completely. That's not there for them. They're going to have what we got right now is what they're going to see growing up. All the confusion. Certainly they're going to be exposed to a tremendous amount of manipulation so people can use them.
If you told them to write something in cursive, do you think you'd be speaking a foreign language to them?
Somebody probably mentioned it once, but it wasn't hammered into us. I mean, we knew damn well what the difference was between cursive and printing by the time we were in the first grade. You know, a point was made that there's these two kinds of different writing. And we learned both. I don't know. You know, I'm sure we could find out by Googling it.
It's like today it's caps lock or caps lock off. That's what they know.
Well, you know, the fact is this. We're up against a whole bunch of things that are going to change stuff for us. One of the big ones, and I don't think people are quite aware of it, along with everything else that's going on, is we're having a planned encroachment of our jobs by people who will see a profit in eliminating humans from their productions in the United States globally. It's a big time, big worldwide threat. It's a threat because they're just going for the money and they're not doing any compensation. They're not. I thought machines were supposed to improve our life, but this is going to be a situation where it might really be too quick, too fast, too.
They're selling out their own grandchildren to the machine. They don't even realize it.
You know, there's a lot of people that can really outthink all of this and would be more than glad to do it for free out of love in their hearts. And as silly as it sounds, or at least as some people think it is, learning to respect each other, having increasing compassion is all going to guide us toward a sane society. And we need one globally. We're at the point now where we can hurt ourselves. We're like kids, you know, just learning about glass bottles.
Well, I think the problem is that employment obsolescence through productivity, efficiency, and procedural efficiency within the workplace was never really factored in to the paradigm that we're living in. As a result of that, you know, we're still working for the most part 5 days a week, sometimes 6, sometimes 7. And that doesn't need to happen. I mean, I think we could certainly work towards a 4-day working week as a start. But, you know, I remember being on a job where as a you know, part of my job was to improve procedures within the workplace. But I kind of noticed that the epitome of my job was to actually work myself out of my own job. Now, you know, what would have been in my reward for doing that? Obviously, I would have been out of a job, so it wasn't in my interest to some extent to do that. But I was still trying to improve efficiency in the workplace. But, you know, that's an indication of a lot of people's jobs where they, you know, if they improve too much, they'll actually work themselves out of a job. You know? Yes.
It's one of those ironies about mismanagement. One of the problems is we're getting to the point where a small amount of people are basically abusing the system for their own benefit, and it's you know, it's not that much of a benefit. They've got relatively poopy lives, as far as I can tell. You know, they're bustled about hither and yon. They haven't got a minute to think for themselves, or else they're to the point where they don't take care of business at all, and all they do is get into sybaritic, you know, self-abuse, you know.
We've been joined by another fellow Revolution Radio extraordinaire. Dude Guy, do you have an iRobot that cleans your floors?
No, I just have a dog that gets them dirtier. That's about it.
How's it going, brother?
Still living in the old paradigm, I guess.
All depends on what you got for dirt. You know, if it's a ham bone, it's history.
A lot of dog hair, you know.
That's right. We can handle it.
Yeah, it's all right. It's worth it. But yeah, you're talking about this economy not benefiting labor-saving economic gains.
Automation is
intentionally mishandled.
Automation is tearing apart our economic structure.
Pretty much.
Well, it's not just automation. The point of doing any job is to finish it, wouldn't you say?
I think what we did is we lost our ethics in the machine age, and we haven't really grown a new set to handle it.
Right.
Wow.
Here's a good question for all of you. Do you guys ever go through a self-checkout line? Or do you always make sure you go through someone that has an actual cashier there?
I like to talk to
mix.
I made friends with all the people that work at the time that I go in. I say hi and ask how they are. I like talking to people.
Well, a lot of times you don't get a chance to do that in these big box stores anyway, but, when I can, I'll go through a line. But, I think it's a good thought, but I'd like to get to the root of the issue. And what I was trying to propose there was the point of doing any job is to finish it. I mean, when you clean your bathroom or, fix your car or something, you don't want to keep fixing it. You want to clean it and have it last for a while, or fix it and have it last for a while. Same with an employer. He would like to have as little labor go into running his business as possible, and that's the logical thing. Why it's unfair is that only a small class really gets to own or run businesses based on the economy, and so there's not really a ladder to freedom and empowerment. It's a very narrow Jacob's ladder that twists and turns and is regulated, taxed, and kept away from most people for the benefit of a small class. So one way to fight back is to do what you suggest and try to make it more difficult for them to whittle and winnow away, at least a little bit of participation we get the economy by doing labor. But the real solution, in my opinion, is to make it so that we all benefit from labor-saving strategies and technologies, and so that would be where we own and run our own businesses for the benefit of our communities. And instead of realizing the benefit of gains of technology and organization on a monopolistic cartel level, a globalist level of one Walmart projecting itself all over the world, we have businesses that try to maximize the labor-saving time and wealth for their employees. The employees are the shareholders and stakeholders, not a third-party group of people that live in Switzerland and Shanghai, and they're scattered all over the world, and they own stocks in your company, and they get to decide how your company's run. Really, I think the majority shareholder. Now, you can have, in my opinion, getting a little complicated here, but in my opinion, you can have some stockholders, but they really shouldn't be able to decide much about the company. They can participate or not, and that's up to them. But, they don't get a lot of rights. Who gets the rights is the people who work for the company and the community where the company is located, and those people make the decisions. And it's not able to be changed.
Hence the
wherever
word
the business
web
is,
or the net. I mean, that's basically was a double-edged sword. It brought in communication in the positive for all of us to learn, and the unveiling, the apocalyptic type unveiling of information, was brought to our eyes. But at the same time, it's the same web or net that allowed the controllers, whoever they are, to control remotely from wherever they may be. And that's what allowed the outsourcing and allowed the deconstruction of the economic structure that we were used to.
Well,
you want to
in
hear,
a way, Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. What occurs to me is the way they'll pull the scam off is they're going to use the machines and bill out human hours. That'll be the first amount of rip-off. Nobody,
they already do that.
Yeah, I know. The only people who are going to be aware of it are the people keeping track of big layoffs of corporations that usually had lots of hand labor. And what will happen eventually is the same kind of machine availability, if it goes a good way, will be available to lower classes, lower economic classes at least, certainly not in any other way, but lower economic people, more entrepreneurs will have access to it, and that'll restore a balance. It's always give and take, give and take. But that's glossing over a tremendous amount of people being crippled by this kind of unplanned, ruthless, money is the bottom line kind of...
Oh, it's planned. No, SJ, it's planned. There's no doubt about that. I work in the auto industry, and I can tell you that the plan was to undermine the unions and their ability to get decent wages for people. And people often point out that the unions create an artificial scarcity, but so do the corporations. It's just a response to what the corporations do. They bargain collectively. They create bottlenecks in the economy. And so the only response, if you're not going to change the fundamental problem, is to do a similar, action. And so people who point out, that unions are causing problems rarely point out that corporations are actually the beginning of the problem, And so what I've tried to propose is that instead of having shareholders in corporations, you have stakeholders and companies that operate for the benefit of their communities and actually seek to lower the amount of time it takes to do tasks and give that wealth back to their employees in the form of free time. We all lower our work days. We balance it between, a paycheck and free time. And we have that time to go invest in our communities, run our communities.
Well, yeah. Back in the
protect our
day,
communities.
before the tyranny and the, corporatism that we're in now, I mean, we used to have things called incentive. And that would, push people. We had bonuses and incentives. But today, under this structure, it's more threats. It's like, oh, well, you can be replaced any second. So you better do the extra work and shut up.
Did you ever see Glenn Ross, where they have everybody compete, and the winner gets a Cadillac, the winner salesman, they sell real estate. The second place gets a set of steak knives, and third place is the door for everybody else. So that's basically the epitome of the economy today, by keeping us at each other's throats and just happy if we have a job.
Well, no. Don't go off full tilt now. Those kind of corporations exist in America, where they have employee shareholders that run a corporation and divide the profits.
Like Costco.
Yeah. So one of the things you got to be aware of is that all this change takes forever. I mean, if there's one thing that characterizes the thinkers of 2014 is a sincere desire to be about 20 years ahead of where we are, in a positive way.
I think one of the problems is obviously with the model that we're living by at the moment and the corporate model. The motive behind efficiency and growth has always been profit. More and more profit, and that's
for who,
that
though?
in its that for whoever is wanting the profit, either the shareholders or the owners of the company.
But not the majority of people who actually participate in the company. The profit goes to a small group of people who participate in the company. The profit goes to a small group of people who control the company. And so they justify their actions in the name of profit. But it's not profit for all. Most of that money goes to a few people, and it doesn't get circulated back into the economy like the theory says.
The slaves get wages. The owners get profits.
Wages just keep you showing up to work the next day.
That's the difference between who should be taxed, too. You got to know your vocabulary. Otherwise, you'll get screwed.
You know what the difference is?
Well, Wingman, go ahead and finish your point first.
Yeah, no, and just to finish up, statistically, with regards to the profit and the income generated by a corporate economy, about 14-15% goes back into the local economy versus about 50% or thereabouts in a local economy. So there's a big difference in that respect. And part of the problem also is how we measure political or economic success. And often you hear politicians refer to, an increase in GDP, or they'll spit out economic growth,
No, the big thing now is creating billionaires. That's the goal of the economy, supposedly, that I hear all the time, which is a sign of an imbalanced economy, not a balanced one.
Right.
And for every billionaire, you've got, a million poor people in this economy.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
I think one of the things that we saw was that we spent $14 trillion approximately, whatever it was. We spent a lot of trillions bailing out huge banks. Instead of buying all those properties and giving them to everyone who had one. It was the same money. It was our money. That kind of thinking would have worked. But that kind of thinking doesn't occur to anybody that has the power to make that decision. That's the nitty-gritty of it.
I'm sure it occurred to him. I'm sure it occurred.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. These people, I would say a good a good number of them are perfectly aware of what they're doing. They think of themselves as an elite class. They've joined up with this system wholeheartedly. You know, I mean, if you look at some of these people, they come into Congress moderately wealthy. After a few years in Congress, they're millionaires and multimillionaires. I mean, Dianne Feinstein, for example, and I won't just pick on a Democrat or something, but just saying Dianne Feinstein came to the Congress and she was, I think, not quite a millionaire, but she was wealthy, upper middle class, and she married somebody who was worked for Bank of America. Well, he became vice president of Bank of America, I believe, or one of their vice presidents while she was in Congress. And now she's a senator, and now she's worth over $100 million, not because of her husband, but because of all these kickbacks and deals that she's gotten inside information on investments and stuff like that. What happens is they pass legislation, and they know it's going to change the economy, and they buy shares and things in advance of government contracts and regulations, and then they end up profiting from it because they know how it's going to affect, because the lobbyists tell them how it's going to affect things. And of course, they get options and little deals and stuff like that on the side. I mean, so if you look at Congress today, it's packed full of millionaires and multimillionaires. It doesn't represent the people.
I'm going to cut in just to introduce a new caller. We've been joined by John JMJ12 in the chat room. Welcome to the conversation, John.
Thank you very much, and hopefully Skype will be good to us, and I think it will very much now. Go on, and then I want to chime in about manufacturing, but from a farmer's point of view.
All right, SJ, go ahead, and then John will hit it up after you.
No, let it, JMJ, it's good to see you. Please go ahead. My comments aren't golden. They'll happen again.
Thank you, man. You're quite welcome to go on. I can sit and wait.
No, go ahead.
I understand. Yeah, cool. I understand labour becoming obsolete in the hard goods industry and maybe in telecommunications and normal. But when you get down to the farm and you go outside grain production, and you go into my area, which is fresh fruit, I am only as good as my workers. My business decisions, what I do, will make a difference. But the quality of produce I produce is up to my labour force. That I can never ever see changing. I don't believe you'll see, maybe in 50 or 100 years, tech will come along where we're using robots that are able to do it. Few have tried. France has done some wonderful things, but you cannot, especially the harvesting of fruit, replace anything with the human eye and the hand. Just for example, stone fruit needs, although it's firm when it's picked, it needs to be treated in the right way. Apples are probably the hardest fruit to pick there is, because just the slightest amount of pressure, depending on its sugar content, its brick content, and how ripe it is, will determine the amount of bruising you get. A human hand is perhaps the only thing that can do it.
Yeah, I've picked apples.
Yeah, okay, man, then you understand. And my major variety here is a thing called Pink Lady.
Yeah, if I'm correct, you own quite a few acres of groves, don't you? There. I recently sold out, but I'm contracted to stay on for 12 months to take the new owners through a full season. But yeah, there's 100 acres. I'm sitting on about 18,000 pear trees and about 12,000 apple trees. Planted in the old way, traditional, like some of my rows are. Today, if I'm putting a new block in, I'll make the rows about 3 metres wide, which is just enough to get my tractor and spray unit and cut the grass and do what's necessary. And they'll be planted, each stock root carrying whatever variety I've grafted to will be 1 metre apart. But you're saying you need a human being's eyes and hands to choose the fruit quality.
And knowledge. Because I'll be picking, my pinks are now colour, not just starting to change, but it'll be another couple of months because I'll need very cold nights for the colour to come into the fruit and the maturity get to the right stage that I can put it into storage. Only the human eye has the ability to pick the right piece of fruit and know whether they're picking a piece of fruit what maturity levels it at, because I will pick my trees probably 3 or 4 times before I finish the pick. It's a very, very different industry. It's totally labour intensive, and I just don't see a way, though some have tried with computer machines and some French technology, but no one's got anything even close. They spend hundreds of $1,000s on trying new technology. They end up just throwing it away. It's just... yeah, go on, SJ, sure.
Just a quick interruption. What I was thinking about when you first came on was the fact that families ultimately develop to handle that, those kinds of specialty occupations. And I think as we crunch down, we're going to crunch down for sure. As we crunch down, we'll all become more important to each other. That's what we'll end up doing when the poop hits the fan, is we'll be taking care of each other. I plan on that. I've been planning. I think we can do it. One of the things that really impressed me up here was the fact that Alberta got flooded. Rodeo, one of the biggest cities in Alberta, and people volunteered. They sorted it out really quick. That was a pretty serious flood. Quite a few people got killed in it.
Yeah, I think our ability to come together and do the things that need to be done will always be present. As long as
it's underrated. What do you think, JMJ? Is it underrated or not, in your opinion?
SJ, it's one of the things that I'm concerned about. I hope you're right, and I believe they'll come together. But this, in Australia, what my people do is called unskilled labour. It is far from it. Oh, and our wage rates are very, very high. Like, I'm paying my best people $25 an hour.
You keep the stem on, right?
Oh, yes, must.
And do you know how hard just keeping the stem on the perfect apple is, right?
Well, man, okay, you probably know this. The trick is to not pull the apple, but you must not use your finger. You must place it in your palm, and you must lift it up. And the stem will come away from its joint, because with each flower, you're getting 5 pieces of fruit. I've already run through the orchard and brought it all, what we do call thinning, and I've brought it back to 2 pieces of fruit per bud. But you still got to put the apple in the palm of your hand and gently lift it up so you take it off with the stem. The thing I've seen, and I see it right throughout the industry, that we don't have the young people interested in this industry anymore.
They probably ran into in Mexico, by the way, in California, and it's one of those little problems that sort of nobody is paying attention to, but that's an aspect that we don't understand.
It brings it right back to the education system. They're not being taught how to plant seeds, like I said earlier. Simple as that.
Right on. Down to the nitty-gritty.
If I could say something on this point.
Go, dude, go.
The point that I was trying to make about economic organization and becoming self-sufficient and using the benefit of our own companies, whether they be agricultural or hard goods manufacturing, to free us up to do other activities that benefit our communities instead of trying to work all this overtime, make money, and then buy what we need from, across the globe, is try to organize our own communities so they're self-sustaining and only buy, like extra luxury things that our creativity and free time create and we can share with each other. But the things that we really need for life, each town and local areas should be producing.
To time. Yeah. We sold out time for everything else.
And what I'm saying with John's question is that instead of having huge mega farms, and I'm not saying John's is a huge mega farm, it's a bigger one, but he could be supplying his own region instead of trying to export to the whole world, but his own county or his own province. Right. And I think that should be the economic goal of most production, is to really supply your own region first, and then the extra production you have, ship that over the world or whatever, but every locality depending on the business, whether it's producing cars or just producing fruit, should really be concentrated in maybe a 100-mile radius or 200-mile radius of really trying to, produce for people in that area, and then the extra production can go, wherever it goes. And if every region was sort of set up generally that way, not strictly, but generally with that idea of overlapping 100 or 200-mile radiuses.
All the liberals will call you a
organization.
Nazi, though. They'll say you're trying to separate East and West Berlin with the wall.
No, it's not a wall. It's just a general rule of thumb that if we would think about producing for our localities first and then the global economy second, every region would have a market niche to produce into, and we would have abundance. Instead of having this competitive scarcity, we create abundance, we create lower prices for everything. We get our profit from producing lower and lower prices, and we take a profit out of that, and the encouragement is to produce lower prices with less labor and have more time for our creativity and other things we all want. And it would be distributed
in a free market,
to everybody.
though, it can't happen because there's always going to be the man that's more greedy than the last man that'll go and do dastardly things and go into the black market if he has to, go underneath that wall or that perimeter that you're describing.
Well, I'm not saying.
Hold on. I've been around this conversation about 100 times, and let me interject here with something that occurred to me. It isn't so much about what's going to happen, and I can play the devil's advocate on his proposal. But what is important is thinking about how we're going to make that transition, because people are going to get shocked by any even minor economic rift. And we've got potential disasters looming everywhere, as you well know. So I think this is one of those conversations where if we start focusing in on what we can do, specifically to the neighbors around us, like getting to know them. I think in America, getting to know your neighbors has gone out of style, but it's going to very...
How better to get to know them than by producing things that they need, which is what I'm talking about. It isn't any regulation. It's economic
conversation
outlook.
Sometimes conversation is what you need to share first. Do you live in one of those situations where you've got 300 apartments around you and you don't know anybody?
No.
Well, that's
communities
common
in Michigan.
America.
No, the communities around here generally are not like that. A lot of single-family homes, lots of space, lots of farmland. Detroit is set up to be, there's a central city part, and then there's a bunch of farmland and suburbs and sprawling out areas. There's a lot of space here in Michigan.
Hey, I'll tell you, I know I got a lot of friends in Detroit. I've been keeping in touch with them since 00. We had some on the show for a while. They were great people. I miss them. And I've since paid attention to any articles written about Detroit and what it's doing about its situation, which is very desperate. They're about to go bankrupt. But also socially, there's a lot of people emerging with unique ideas for doing business and citing it and carrying it on and presenting it to people. And people are opening up their range of acceptability for these options, these alternatives. And it's really rich and very vibrant.
Detroit was the center. Detroit was the center of all these greedy bastards of manufacturing that they started to decompose and outsource and take apart to break down this country and its economic stability of manufacturing and industry. Detroit was where the cancer was started.
I don't know about that. I think it was Wall Street that came and took over Detroit. Detroit was the center of creativity.
Hold on, gentlemen.
Co-opted, but
hold on. Let's
Let's
accept the fact that it's complicated. Okay. I mean, none of these simple things. Understatement is as bad as exaggeration in some ways. It's complex, but what's emerging is relevant and right now, and that's what we should be paying attention to. I have a different opinion of Detroit than most people that write about it or talk about it that aren't there.
Well, I am here.
Yeah. And as you know, there's new restaurants happening. There's new ways of people communicating. There's new kinds of societies. I'll tell you one of the things that will happen in the future is we'll have flash political action. Much more of it than we have had. We have already had flash political action. And now that's an interesting thought to carry on. Start speculating about if you want to think creatively.
Can I just say a few things?
Yes, sir.
For some time, we've been sold this kind of pitch that the free market economy means we have more choice and diversity. Now, that's obviously a lie. What happens is the bigger players, they buy out the choice, and then they diminish choice to increase profit. So you'll have less product lines and inferior ingredients in those products as cutbacks are made. And what eventually what we've seen our high streets shrink in diversity, so that your sole traders are fewer and fewer and fewer, and the diversity and the choice has actually decreased.
It's the nature of corporate centralization.
No, it's the point I was just trying to make, that I don't think you understand, is that people do not have the right, in my opinion, to sell out their local production to some big conglomerate. You can sell it to somebody. You can sell it to somebody. Wait, you can sell it to somebody else in your town or county or something. You can't sell it to somebody, in another country. I just think that's the big problem.
It's because
you're creating people from being producers, a region from being a producer to a consumer. And what these big companies want to do is create a bunch of dependent consumers that don't have ability to produce and compete anymore. So there's the free market actually means you have a multitude, abundance of producers, and the competition is constantly checking each other, and nobody, no region goes out of business. The management team might get booted out, but that doesn't mean you sell off and burn down the orchards and just have one little region produce all the apples for the entire world or something. It's ridiculous. Right. Well, everyone should be producing everywhere.
Your proposal,
and that keeps the price low and the free time available.
Your proposal is calling for ethic police, right? Ethnic,
it's just a principle.
Well, hold on, let me finish. You can't have ethic police, because what we did is, all of a sudden now, we're going to have ethics police out there to find out who's greedy, right? And that's not going to happen. They already did that, and it became
I didn't say anything about that.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's the only way to be able to do something like that, to control free will of humans within capitalism.
We have plenty of controls right now.
Yeah, it's called political correctness. They took something good and once again made it something evil. And so now political correctness has turned it into political control.
Hold on. Let me ask a question of everybody, okay? Address the table. What dude was saying is a good sum up of basic political theory. And it has the same weakness any theory does: practicality, pragmatic application.
Totally.
But the question I wanted to ask, and I'll make it quick, because I won't mouth, I will ask a specific question, which is, most of us are aware of all of this, right? That's the question.
Right.
So I think it's time that, is everybody else aware of it?
Well, I just want to say, with regards to Dude Guy's proposal, with regards to effectively the economies of scale starting at a local level and managing the expansion of that locality, I think that's very doable. I think if you have, let's say, a local oversight committee that can say, yes, a buyout by an external company is or isn't in the interests of the locality. I think that's perfectly doable. Obviously, it's not something.
Oh yeah, hey, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
We recently had a show on the network here where a lady was talking about her area with poultry farms and how the poultry farms had taken over and poisoned the water around her, and also about 10 other related problems that occurred, and talking about how little choice she had about the corporate access to the property and her say in it. So that's happening all over the world. It's one of the things we need to rethink and start organizing to oppose. It's going to be crucial.
I just think.
Can I just say? I just want to say. I think the main problem, and this is the reason why I think you guys presenting his case for change here, is that corporate expansion has not served our interests. It's unregulated corporate expansion has led to the nastiest type of corruption, the nastiest type of control, the nastiest pillaging of resources that we've ever witnessed. So we need to roll back that effect. And I think, to some extent, we need to manage the design of the paradigm that we want to live by.
Anybody has, if you manage your own home and your garden, and you have to have a principle of almost feng shui about the community to keep it in balance and harmony. You can't just have a few people maximizing profit at the expense of others. It's a ridiculous concept. That's not free market.
Bingo.
Free market means you try to achieve a harmony between production and consumption. Specializing in one or two commodities for an entire region is insane. You create an incredible imbalance, and then if there's any problem in the economy, it goes into a tailspin. The goal is to use the natural abilities of whatever location you're at, maximize those, and use that maximization to create an independent, self-sustaining economy that has enough time and resources left over to specialize in a couple of things. It's not the reverse where you specialize, try to make enough money to buy your way out of that specialization handicap. You create a harmony first, and then use that harmony, wealth, balance to pursue creativity and abundance.
And take all those resources because you can. But
we're
almost out of time. I just wanted to make a couple plugs, a couple selfless plugs, because I'm poor also. I do remote computer support and repair. Come in there, clean up your stuff. Visit my site, onepriceit.com. It's the number one priceit.com. Also, I wanted to plug The Gray Zone. That's on YouTube. It's The Gray Zone, all one word, and that's with an A for the Gray, The Gray Zone. You can catch all of our archives there, The Gray Zone at YouTube. And I wanted to thank everybody here for calling in, and my new co-host, Wingman. I wanted to once again welcome you, and you're going to be an awesome addition to the Revolution Radio family. So
thank you, Rex.
There's my hat tip to you. And I'm sorry. Go ahead, SJ. That's all I wanted to do is throw that out there. And we are listener supported. Freedomslips.com. Hit that site support button. We need you to breathe. So, SJ, you got the mic, brother.
Well, thank you so much. Well, one of the things that occurred to me is the fact that if theoretically everybody is right. Specifically, though, I don't think we're going to have any help from the top down. I think anything that's going to be beneficial to us is going to be from the ground up. What do you think, boys?
We need to manifest what it is we want, and I think we need to start with ideas management and really nuts and bolt that, get that down, get that worked out, manage our ideas collectively. I think when we can do that, then we can see the emergence of more local economies, things like farmers markets and real interaction and human connection at a local level. People talking to each other all of a sudden where they ignore each other in the Walmarts and so on and so forth, and create a local healthy economy so that we disempower the big corporations because suddenly they don't serve our interests any longer. Suddenly they're unethical. Suddenly they're unhealthy, and we start to all realize that more and more and more. And the problem at the moment is that with regards to efficiency in the workplace, that is being channeled back directly into profit. So greater efficiency at the moment means greater profit. In other words, less labor. Instead of, really it should be freeing up not only free time like Dude Guy says, but also innovation. So that where we have efficiency in the workplace, we're freeing up more time for innovation.
Exactly.
So what I think would come about as a result?
Time is the bottom line, and energy is the bottom line below time. If we all had free energy like God intended for us to have, we'd have all the time in the world for innovation and helping each other, and not so much stressing on the week-to-week check coming in to pay all the bills and taxes that the oppressors put upon us. But I wanted to give John the last word. We got like seconds left, guys.
Yeah, man. God, this is such a big, big subject. In Australia, we've tried the free trade thing, but it's got to be all or nothing. And we're talking about my fruit goes locally and around this country, but there's no export. I can't export anything. I grow probably the world's cleanest, nicest product, but my wages price me totally out of the market. The Australian dollar's high. It just doesn't work. Grassroots, farmers markets, yeah, done that. It all works well, but you've got to get people out of this mentality of just looking at television and buying from the big boys. I don't have the solution, but this would be a great subject to get going with at some stage. And thanks very much, boys. Thank you.
Thanks for calling in, John.
Likewise.
Always welcome. Thank you also,
thanks.
SJ. You're always welcome. Same with you, dude guy.
Thanks, bro.
Appreciate it. But I think we got about a minute left, so final statements. I guess make it about 20 seconds each. Go, Wingman, go.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, ideas management, and I think we can empower ourselves by working out how to keep the big guys out of the picture.
Nice.
SJ,
You know,
you wanna go?
Yeah, I'd like to throw in that as many people as you think are against you, there's that many people that are for you. You just don't know about it. Over.
Good one. Dude guy.
I would just say we want those economies of scale to be local so that we have time for our profit to recirculate instead of trying to recirculate it around the world. It'll never make it back to us. So keep the wealth at home.
Right. Teach your kids to build something, not memorize something. Teach them to make something and repair something, not buy something. Right?
Yeah, production,
that's where
not
it
consumption.
starts. And it needs to start in the youth, because the youth are being hypnotized, controlled, and indoctrinated by the very system that we're speaking against. So
You want to create abundance, not artificial scarcity. That's freedom.
Hear, hear. It's been a good show. I appreciate everybody out there, Revolution Radio. This has been The Gray Zone with Rectify and Wingman, and we will see you again next Tuesday morning. Hope you have a great week. So, peace out.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.